my greatest talent in life is my ability to make people feel comfortable and to make people actually want to converse with me. And I find that, especially when somebody comes to the situation at the supermarket or at the dog park, and I can tell they don't want to talk. And after 10 minutes of conversation,
everybody opens up.
They do.
Huh?
It's a talent. I have a talent.
But that's great.
And
That's great.
I love it so much. I'm
God.
so sorry. Let's do it that and then put it away. I'm so sorry. My plant really doesn't like you.
I just got slapped by the plant.
2 times.
The Hungarian plant, right?
Right.
Hi everyone, this is Sonia from Selling Budapest. Today we are here with Matt from California
And Australia.
and
Yeah, I
Australia.
didn't think that.
Oh, okay, all right. I didn't know about that. We were going to find out more,
So much more.
so much more, right? I have to start with the first question. Why Budapest?
I was living a very wonderful and somewhat sedate life in California, but I was working as a music and drama teacher and playing music and such, but I happened to be married to a Hungarian woman, and she had always said in our idyllic little California abode, you don't really know what it's like to visit or be part of another community or culture until you live somewhere else. And we'd done a bunch of traveling,
Right.
but it wasn't until we came to commit to living here that everything kind of changed for me. So Budapest was a very easy place to start for reasons that I didn't know at the time, but initially it was because her family was here. We had an apartment that she'd purchased years ago on Basilica, and so we moved here in May of 2019 and moved into an unfinished, very funky 40 square meter apartment on Basilica, and that's where it all sort of began. So that's the first version of the answer to the question.
Nice, nice, nice. And how do you like it so far here in Budapest?
I've sort of fallen in love with it, so much so that I've written a song about it and created numerous expat pieces regarding how other people have found their way to Budapest.
We are going to put it in the description, by the way, so you guys can listen to it.
You know, it's a spot that invites people. My friend from Poland, Vicky, said Budapest is a place that invites you and doesn't judge you.
That's an interesting
I thought it
one.
was a great line, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's like we mentioned the other day, London, Paris, San Francisco, New York, everything's very set in its ways. Everything's already preordained. And in Budapest, it feels to me a little bit like the Wild Wild West, or as we coined in the song, the Wild Wild East, because you can come here and you can reimagine yourself, you can
Right.
reinvent yourself.
Definitely.
You know,
Yes.
and there's a lot of
Definitely.
people from all over the world that come here because it's vibrant, it's welcoming, it's got community and culture.
An opportunity.
And so much.
Right? Like you can just start doing it because nobody else has done it or doing it, right?
You know, every third building is a work in progress, and it's symbolic of the city itself. Where you walk down a street in Paris or London, everything is perfect, everything's preordained, everything is set up the way it's supposed to be set up. And yet in Budapest, the bells ring and
Oh my goodness, I can't believe that we are picking up the bells. And you know what? I wish we were like our camera would face to Basilica, because you who you are watching it, you would be able to see like what a cool place he lives. And we are actually facing to the Basilica, and from here we can hear the bell. And you know, I was shooting, sorry for interrupting, but I was shooting the other day and selling an apartment next to Basilica, and I was selling it.
Was it a positive?
I was selling it with a line saying that, well, we are close to Basilica,
But not too close?
but not too close, so you don't hear the bell in the morning.
We might be a little too close. And it is 6 a.m. And it is every morning at 6 a.m., including Sunday morning when I rolled out of La Havana at 2:30 a.m. And even the other night, I went to the Israeli food spot and had that whatever time it was. So yes, it's every morning, and we have a large dog who does not like the bells. Luckily, he's on a walk with the wife, but it would be a whole other thing, and it can be a bit much.
It could be, but you got used to it, huh?
No.
You know, I actually like it.
It's fine.
It's fine. I mean, it's like who gets the bell, right?
No, and
but if you are like a light sleeper, then I understand that Sunday 6 a.m. you don't want to hear the bell, right?
Sunday 6 a.m. It's the one time I think that they could roll it back. They could roll it back to 8 a.m. on a Sunday. I mean, come on. But I must tell you, coming from America, coming from California, where we're only 225 or 230 years old, this history
Right.
and this just this echo, both literally and figuratively, it's beautiful. Just not at 6 a.m. in the morning on a Sunday.
I know. But this brings us to the next question.
Yes.
So you live in the 5th district.
Disneyland, yes, I live in Disneyland.
You live in Disneyland.
Yes. It's
Tell us, how do you like it?
It's not real, but it's a good investment. So from a real estate point of view, we almost bought something in the 6th. We looked very seriously in the 8th. We did not look that seriously in the 7th, only because of the nightlife that it is. But being a Jewish man, the 7th district has so much history and so much brutal history.
I know.
But for me, coming from America and visiting some concentration camps and seeing the little gold stars that are outside our building and the other buildings around here, there's something also beautiful and poignant about the 7th district. And there's something a little bit bittersweet about the fact that that's now become the party capital of, the party capital of Budapest.
Right.
So Budapest has got a lot of mixed messages going on, and Hungary, for better or for worse, has always chosen the wrong side of the war. So that echoes and infiltrates some of the local people here, not necessarily the younger people and not necessarily the international people, but in one of the interviews that we did, I was always so struck by the old ladies in the grocery market who don't want to have any sort of interaction with me, and yet I find it a challenge and an opportunity to get them to smile. And part of that is having a big dog that people are both afraid of and sort of amazed at. And the fact that I walk around and go, "Yofiu, kitchi kitchi," which means good boy most of the time.
Yeah. Namband.
Yeah, and so part of my challenge as a loquacious American is to reach out to folks of the community, whether that be kids or whether that be the old folks. And I keep on hearing about this transgenerational distrust that Hungarians have passed down from family member to family member. And part of that was, I guess, growing up in communist times where neighbors would tell on neighbors. And I don't...
Yeah, we had, yeah.
and so the Hungarian people as a whole are sweet and honest and wholesome, but there is, and I'm generalizing, there is a little bit of trepidation, a little bit of, I'm not sure I trust you right away. And yet, once you break through that initial fear or that initial concern, there's such warmth and such a lovely quality. And so we spend a bunch of time out in Vats, about a half an hour north from here. That's where my wife's family comes from, and I think there was Palinka involved, but the first time I got there, the mother, the father, and the grandmother, none of who spoke any English, I was convinced we were communicating word to word by the end of the evening. And, there was something beautiful about that, and the fact that people do have trust once they've been...
You break the ice.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And I find that everywhere. But
yeah,
Budapest...
that's the culture. I think it's the same in the Russian culture. Like, it's just, we don't do the small talks. We need time to...
True.
Yeah, like to...
And in America, all we do is small talk.
Yeah.
We say, "Hi, how are you?" when we don't really mean it.
Yeah,
And in
but
Budapest, if you say hi, how are you, you're apparently really asking how are you.
exactly. But then in America, you don't want those deep questions to follow it. Like you just want like,
Yeah,
hi, how
it's
are
all
you, and that's
superficial.
it. I don't want to have your issues.
No,
Not today.
and there's something sad about that, and there's no judgment either way. It's
Well,
just yeah.
like maybe I adopted both of the culture well enough, but sometimes I don't want to have your issues. Like when I'm in the supermarket
Of course.
and I'm just there to grab something, and I know that the person who is helping me or not helping, because the customer service is not the best.
It's getting better. It's getting better.
It's not the best in Budapest, but I may just don't want. Like I have a good day. I don't want to have taken with me your problems.
For
you know
me,
what
however,
I mean?
as a loquacious and curious American Australian, I love to connect. I love to have that moment. And so yes, there are moments where people such as yourself maybe don't want to connect. But no, but I have faith in Hungarians with that. And again, part of that is what I bring to the table. So
Yeah.
I know that I have a talent to make people feel comfortable and make people share things with me, maybe that they didn't think they would ever be sharing with a stranger, but that's part of my joy in life. I always ask people, what makes them happy, and I do a documentary film about that. I travel the world. What makes you happy? And how do you
Right.
find your happiness? And it's such a easy question, and I always tell people, what's the first thing you think of when I say that? And I want you to answer that. What's the first thing you think of? And oftentimes it's family, sometimes it's food, but life is short, and I think you got to find what makes you tick. I think you got to find what makes you happy. And for me, to answer your question long term, is making connections with people.
Right. So you, as a foreigner, relocated to a country that you never lived, and you found Budapest. You found yourself now this city as a home.
Well, I have a couple of homes, but we all know the Hungarian word itthon and otthon. And for those of you at home, it's two different definitions of home. And home is where your clothing is, and where your family is, or where your dog is, but it's also where your heart is. And again, my version of these definitions tends to be a little bit more fluid, but I love the fact that I can feel at home here, and part of that is our new apartment
Right.
in the 5th District, especially compared to the 40 square meters we were living in for 4 years.
Yeah, this one is quite a large one.
Somehow our marriage lasted.
I got the tour. It's a very nice one.
So, I will go back to California next week. I have old parents, and there is some guilt being far away from them. I've tightened up the trips. The trips used to be 3 or 4 months. Now it's 2 months.
Okay.
And, the future's not promised to any of us, but so home is here. Home is here, and home is also in California.
So as far as the culture shock, I think this is like because the channel is about people who are watching from California. I have many people who is watching from California, and they still in a progress of thinking about it, if they should come to Budapest, whether they should invest or not invest to real estate. They never been to Budapest. What would you tell them? How do you feel about it?
Initially, when I got here in 2001 and 2003, I could not find the center of town. I did not know where to go. People didn't speak to me. Things have changed, and this has become a universal place. Everyone has to speak English because tourism is now the biggest business here, I think. And that's the case in a lot of European capitals, by the way. But tourism in general has taken a place like Budapest, and it's become, I think, the second most popular place to come visit in Europe.
You think so?
Well, there was some listing about that, but it's welcoming, It's very centrally located. You can walk everywhere. It's still inexpensive, although it's getting more expensive, but it's still inexpensive. You know, and you talked about real estate. Look, we sold something in California, and we held on to it for 20 years and made 4 times what we spent on it, and was able to buy a really beautiful apartment here for a fraction of what we sold the place for in California. So, you know, having some money left over and investing in other countries and sort of experimenting with what that looks like, because coming from the States and especially California, and look, for those of you at home, the United States, the Greek civilization, you remember the decline of the Greek civilization. We're kind of in that right now. Many people, and I keep on seeing this on some of the news outlets, are leaving America because they don't believe in it anymore. Based on politically, guns, abortion rights, redistricting, just who we are. I mean, the East Coast and the West Coast are liberal and, dare I say, educated and forward-thinking, a la Budapest, and the rest of the country is a little bit like the country version of Hungary, where they're kind of buying what the government is saying.
Okay, we have many people watching from Texas. Please exclude yourself.
Texas, I'm sure you're very enlightened.
Austin, Texas, and then the rest of the Texas.
Austin is very enlightened, and the rest of the Texas, I'm sure, also. So pardon me about that. As a Californian, I can be a little risque, and I can be a little bit pompous, and I can be a little bit shishi, if you will. So. Look.
Okay, sorry for the interruption, but I have to interrupt it here because the previous interview was with TJ, and he was pointing it out that in Budapest it does not matter what political view you have. He is hanging out with friends from the States that they are thinking differently, and maybe back home it would be different, but here is because you are part of the expat community and because you all have the mutual love for the city.
Yeah.
And that's what you care about it, and you like connecting with others from the States. You don't talk about these topics, so.
Not too much. I actually purposely don't have a lot of American friends. I don't really want to seek them out. Not that you shouldn't. You certainly can. I just don't. I prefer to hang with people who don't have an American sensibility about them, except for the people from Texas, because I love those folks. But, you know, I started this expat movie company, and we tell the stories of people from Turkey and Nigeria and Italy and Russia and all these other countries and America, and why they decided to come here. And to your point, I think you're onto something. When you come to Budapest, it's not about your political beliefs. It's not about who you were and what you believe in and what you're American or Canadian or whatever the case may be. It is a new way of thinking. It is a new way of living, and I don't think...
And connecting.
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely.
And you know, my English is not, I have to say, like, not sophisticated enough to describe it, but every time when I have some visitors in town and we sit in a beautiful rooftop, which you are very lucky to have this beautiful rooftop, and again, like, we're gonna do a B-roll here to show you guys, but most of the time you're getting this view from a bar.
Sure.
And I'm sitting, and we always agree that there is something magical about this city, and it almost makes you forget about a lot of things.
I've never actually heard anyone say it quite as eloquently as that, and now that you mention it, I do find myself, except for my times that I watch CNN, I enjoy separating myself from the politics, and I think Budapest is a place. Now again, we have a brother-in-law who works for the UN, you know, and so we do and are aware of the Orban factor, and you know, my version of Orban from CNN in America is very different than the version of Orban here. He can be a hero to some people.
But does it affect your day-to-day life?
No, not at all. In fact, to your point, Budapest is almost an apolitical city. There is no political lines, and whenever there's something's going on that's political, I got part of a stampede or a protest at Parliament. And I just went because I was curious about it. But no, I don't have any political stance here, and I find that liberating, to your point. Freeing.
Good, good.
And in America, you almost have to have a point of view. I like the president. I don't like the president. I don't like the redistricting. I want to have my guns. I don't want whatever the case may be. So yes, there's a freedom about coming here, and maybe that's something else that's a beautiful element of Budapest.
Right.
Kind of cool.
Right. So you are one of those Californians who were relocating, or at least buying into Portugal first before you came to Budapest?
Actually, Budapest was first, and then
Budapest
Portugal.
was first,
Yeah, yeah.
and then Portugal? Really? Okay.
Budapest is home. Portugal is just investment. I love Portugal, and I'm very happy to be part of that culture, but the place that we invested in is just so it's almost like, it's like Disneyland, but in Portugal it's smaller, so there's no getting away from it. I'm stuck in Disneyland there too, so I can go there for a week.
So, but how did you come across with Portugal then?
I was a school teacher for a while. I took a sabbatical. I was watching Anthony Bourdain. Watch Anthony Bourdain, any of the traveling shows that he did. It'll make you travel. It'll make you move from your country, wherever that may be. And I fell in love with the Lisbon story because I loved the cable cars. And on a whim, I took the train from Lisbon to Porto. And being a San Francisco boy, I love the fog and I love the Mediterranean weather. So I like it when it's colder. I like it when it rains. And I get there in September or October, and it was pouring rain, and I'm down by the river, and there was nobody out, and I'm thinking, this is just the coolest place in the world, Budapest. And, you know, it was something that was always in the back of my mind, and I was going to go home for Thanksgiving 2 or 3 years ago, and instead I took my wife to Portugal, and we saw this apartment, and things just kind of worked out. It was not supposed to happen like that.
Okay.
And we lost it 3 times. It was sold, it was resold. Some Austrian guru bought it. But every time the deal fell through, the agent would call us again, are you still interested? And it was a Chinese investor who owned the property. And he was playing hardball. But after he'd lost the deal 3 times, he was like, you know, I came in really low anyways. But
right.
Finally, we sold this little place in California, so we had some cash. We're like, boom, here's the cash, take it or leave it.
Right.
And he took it at that point. So it's been good. It's been an education. It's been
You're doing their Airbnb, right?
Doing Airbnb, have a management company. They take a good percentage. In Portugal, everyone smiles and say, yes, we'll take care of that, but they actually never really show up to do the work. Sorry, Portugal. You know, it's every country and every city has its own unique, funny versions of things. In Budapest, there's a lot of clocks. The clock time is never correct. I don't quite know why. And there's 4 guys working on a project in Budapest, but usually it's 3 guys sitting around smoking a cigarette and 1 guy working. You know, it's part of the charm, and it's also part of the angst.
But in the end, everything gets done.
And in the end, of course, everything gets fixed. But in Portugal, it's just funny because everyone's so friendly and so, yes, Matthew, yes, dear Matthew, we'll take care of that for you, no problem. And we come back 6 months later and it's still there. So it's like, really?
But I heard that that can be a problem in Texas too.
Very well could be.
Or I have somebody in Miami, Florida, and he was telling me the same thing. Oh, Sonia, like, don't think that it's only in Budapest, or like, it's like a universal problem.
Of course, it's everywhere, and you need to stick with it. Whatever it is that you're trying to do, you need to stick with it. And you know, I was lucky. We were talking about being lucky in general, and you know, investing at a good time. And honestly, and I'm not saying this because she's sitting next to me, investing in Budapest, it's a very good time to do it, because before you know it, Budapest is going to be really expensive, and it's not still. You can still get something for, you know, $200,000 or $300,000. I mean, I don't know, maybe.
Well, it depends. It depends.
Or $2 or $3 million.
Yeah, that depends.
It depends what you want. It depends on what you
It depends what you want. You know, what I keep saying in my videos is that the city is small. So if you want to have certain features, then you have to have a little bit of bigger budget. Comparing California, of course, Budapest is inexpensive. Comparing Budapest to Paris or London,
Sure.
it's still
That's my point.
affordable.
That's my point. And Hungary is still up and coming. Budapest is still up and coming.
I agree. It's
there-
still up and coming.
And there will be a time in the next 10 or 15 years where Budapest may reach this point where it is the Paris of the Eastern European. It already is the Paris.
Because
of
you
Eastern
know,
European.
because I think like architecturally, like we have everything. I always imagine these upcoming areas in Budapest, like what they had in the 80s in Bronx, or you know, the upper side of Manhattan.
Bronx
like
was terrible for a long time.
Yeah, but they had the brownstone buildings,
Yeah.
so the crowds changed, but the architecture, the beauty was there. And in Budapest, you have it everywhere. So-
Every building has a story, and some of these stories are the most epic, historic, and some of these buildings are the most beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, the interesting part about Budapest is it was bombed in the 40s, and so every third or fourth building is a rebuild. And sometimes they keep the facade and they rebuild the back of it, like they're doing at the Parliament right now.
Yeah.
And sometimes they just start from scratch. And when they start from scratch and the Russians came in and rebuilt some of these buildings, there's some buildings that are lacking a little bit of soul. But then right next to it is a building that survived and it just reeks of soul. You
Yeah.
know, and so from a real estate point of view, you know, buying a new build, a rooftop build, because all the buildings can't be higher than Basilica, the building behind us here. And so you've got 4 stories or 5 stories, and then you can't go any higher, right?
Exactly. Yes.
So there's a limited amount of real estate.
It's a limited, and if you want to have a river view, then you only have a handful of buildings, and then in the buildings you have a handful of units, because not every unit has the view of the river.
course.
Some of them they have the courtyard, so that's a different story. So sometimes it's challenging to find a good one, but yes, it is true. You can definitely buy real estate for 200,000. In fact, I recently sold something for 160,000.
Really?
160, yes.
What district?
First district.
Really?
Yeah,
It's the Castle District.
it's a castle, yes. And
Shishi. It's a little shishi. You
yeah,
know the word?
I know.
Shishi's like, ooh. Like
Is
like,
it?
like 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 haughty toddy,
The
like
posh?
fancy, a little
The
fancy.
posh?
Isn't the first district kind of fancy? Can be. If you're close to the castle, doesn't it have to be?
You know, to me, like it's yeah, of course, but it's equal. Like I think Buda side has the first district, the second district, the 12th, and the Pest side has the 5th.
For the shishi? Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I even think the 5th district is changing. I think the 6th district is becoming more shishi. You were talking about the 8th district the other day, whereas 10, 15, 20 years ago it was not anything, and now it's becoming sort of the cool, hip Bronx version, the Brooklyn
Yes.
version.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and this is real estate in general. It's changing so quickly.
Yeah.
And I would say, from being in real estate now myself, it's important to get into the market. Once you get in, then you can upgrade.
Exactly.
But if you're
Just
not
get-
in,
just get it, just get
you
it.
have to get in, and once you get in, then you can sort of finagle your way and figure out what's best for you. As I said earlier, though, I would never have known about Budapest the way I know about it now, the way I love it now, had I not come here to live here. It wasn't coming here to visit, it was coming here to live. And, you know, I owe that all to my wife. I owe that all to, you know, being married to a Hungarian who said, you know, California's great, and we live in the redwoods. You know, we live in like the most beautiful part of California. We have crazy trees all around us, nice little town below us, 20 minutes to San Francisco, but a little not boring just a little bit too much the same. And for me, somebody who is curious and who likes to connect, who wants to see new things, coming to Europe and coming especially to a place that is still like lava. It's still figuring its way out. This wild, wild east. You know, back in Budapest feels like I never left. This wild, wild west. No, what's the line of the lyrics? Anyway, you know, it's still figuring out what it is, and with that comes opportunity. With that comes the ability to come in and make part of it your own story. You can make part of it your own story.
Yeah, exactly. And it's up to you. Like, I think that's important, that you don't want to expect that it's going to be same as back home, right? Because this is a different country, this is a different continent, but it's up to you what you can do with it.
And it also takes some courage to do it. It really does. It's not easy to come to a new country and commit to living here. And it gets harder as you get older. So if you're somebody who's sitting at home thinking about it, there's no time like the present. It has to be now, or it has to be as soon as possible.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you're actually saying that, because if it comes from me, then people are like, oh, she just wants to sell something, and I'm like, you know, I can't. I mean, privately, I'm talking about it, and I know what I'm talking about, and when I'm talking about, then we are talking with people who already here, and so, but it's very hard when somebody's reaching out to me through Zoom, and they're asking why should I do it and how should I do it, and then it's coming from a sales, because at the end of the day I'm selling real estate. So let's be honest.
But you're also selling a lifestyle. I mean, it's both things. You're selling. I mean, pardon me for interrupting, but you're allowing people to reach out beyond what it is they know, and you're offering them a whole new way of living. Honestly,
right, because I know this is good. I just know this is good, and then once you step in here, and again, it's up to you. Like, you know, it might be not everyone's piece of cake, right? Like, but once you step in, it's just a sort of, I can't even describe, like this freedom of doing whatever you want to, and for the fact, because obviously that there are local people here that they never left the country and they've been living here, and they probably are in the same vicious cycle that everybody has. But if you are coming and you were lucky enough, you're coming from somewhere and you were lucky enough selling something, and you're coming with a little budget over here, and you're coming with a fresh mindset, I think that's also very important. And you're ready to do something, then you can find your like-minded people, and yes, you can do those things.
Also, coming to Budapest for me was a no-brainer, because the first year I got here in May of 2019. In June, I flew to Tel Aviv, and I went to Israel for 3 weeks. I got there in 3 hours. The next month, I took my wife and the dog, and we drove to Croatia. And it took 5 hours to get there. For you from Texas, or from Florida, or for me from California, it takes me hours to get anywhere cool away from home base. Meaning that in Budapest, you can get anywhere in an hour or two. I went to Ukraine and Russia, and Russia was 2 hours, Ukraine was 45 minutes.
Yeah, you know, like this is one of those things that everybody in my interview is mentioning, that it's just so easy.
It's gigantic. It's gigantic. And for me, you know, again, I love where I live in California. I can drive to Carmel. It takes about 3 hours to drive to it. I can drive to Lake Tahoe. It's about 4 or 5 hours. Drive to LA, it's around 6 or 7 hours.
I mean, come on, I used to live in Santa Clarita, and then because of the traffic, to get one and a half hour. If there is no traffic.
We went to Austria.
Traffic.
We took the dog to a glacier in Austria. We drove there in 3 or 4 hours. I mean, it was remarkable. We took the gondola up to the top, middle of summer, we're in the snow. I'm like, how is this possible? You know, and so...
Or you can hop on the flight, and we have these budget flights, right? Visa and then the others,
Right.
and then you just look it up. Like I know people that they go and they look which one is the cheapest. Let's have a weekend somewhere in Italy, and they buy a flight for like what, $40 or
$40 to go to Sicily.
something?
Sicily, where you can live to be 120 years old, because it's the most healthy island, or I don't know what it is, but people get it's what, an hour to get there. It's 40 euros round trip, right?
Round trip, yes, and then they just go there for a weekend, just because why not?
Yeah. I mean, that's something that we don't have in California. I don't know about Texas and Florida, but you know, it's America's big. America's big, and America's young. California will always be my home, but Eton and Oton, and I'm very happy and very proud to be a homeowner in Budapest.
And I'm very, very happy for you that you've like seriously, like I think that's what I am most passionate about it. That I'm very happy for everyone in my circle, and I have a quite big circle now. Americans who already relocated, and we getting together. We have lunch, we have dinner, and programs together. And I always tell them, like, I'm so proud of them. I'm so happy for them that they had the courage to get out, and they realize, like, oh, okay, life is not over. Like, there is more to it. And I think that it takes courage.
It does take courage. It does take courage, but then you become, to your point, a more whole human being. You're able to see things in a different light. And I will say, many of my friends who I near and dear, that I love a lot of them have kids. Some of them are teachers or musicians or actors, and you know, it's not easy to leave where you live. But my life has been enriched by the fact that I've now, you know, I've got a couple places that I feel at home at, not just one place. And sometimes I come, and even when I went to Simpla recently, I was like, oh, it's Simpla, it's the same old scene with this and that. I'm missing California, and one guy who was Hungarian said, at least you have the opportunity to go. You know, some of us can't have that opportunity.
Yeah.
So it did take me back a little bit and say, okay, you're right. Be grateful, and also be grateful that I had the courage and that I had the impetus with my wife to make that happen.
Yeah.
And it wasn't easy. I did it at 50, how old was I? 50 something.
Right.
You know, and I was in my early 50s when I did it. It was not easy to do. I was already kind of set in my ways, but
it opened up the whole new
Absolutely.
Universe.
It's been the best 5 years of my life. Absolutely the best 5 years of my life.
So happy for you.
living in
I'm
Budapest,
seriously, genuinely so
and,
happy
and
for
being
you.
in Europe, and being out of America. You know, and it's made me a better person. It's made me see things differently. It's made me be more grateful and gracious. And it's also forced me to connect. As much as I'll, you know, going back to who I am, I'll talk to anybody. In California, I'll talk to you.
And
in the
maybe
supermarket.
also like humbled you in many ways.
Oh, no, not that.
No?
I'm joking. Yes, of course. It's made me see how other people live, and not just Americans. You know, my mom was from Australia. She came over on a boat, didn't even take a plane back in the late 50s. And she was a big star in Australia. And all of a sudden, she was a small potatoes in Los Angeles. And my dad's from New York, and made his way to California, and they found each other. And so they also left their home. Mm-hmm. And in a strange way, my father actually sent both my brother and I to school back east, and I ended up in Chicago. So we would end up appreciating what Marin County is, which is this beautiful enclave just across the bridge from Golden Gate, from San Francisco. But it's absolutely changed me molecularly. My DNA has been changed by moving to Budapest, and for the better. And I see things with new eyes.
I can definitely resonate to how you feel, because me, as a born and raised Hungarian, moved to 4 or 5 different countries, including United States. I feel like every time when I'm moving back home, a different person is moving back home because of that I picked up throughout my journey.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very glad and happy that I have gone through what I have gone through, and made me become who I am become, of aware of all these things that is surrounding us. I think, and I feel like I'm walking around on the exact same cobblestone streets that I've been walking in my 40 years, and but now, like, I just see things differently, and I think that's the point, right? It's just, I am 100% sure that when you traveling back to California, and I know that you're leaving soon, you're arriving home, you see everything differently. You driving on the same road in your neighborhood, but things are different.
Yes and no. I know what you're saying, but I also feel like in my hometown and in my idyllic little neighborhoods that nothing ever changes. So when I come home from college, from Europe, from wherever else, it also feels to me like everything's exactly the same. So I look at things differently. To your point, I know what you're saying. You're saying I see things differently, and I absolutely do. But I also see them in the sense that I come to this rich cultural city and Europe in general, where there is just so much echo, so much history. And I come back to California, and it feels to me like America is so young, and yet my little neighborhoods are very similar to the way they were when I was in high school. Mm-hmm. So yes, I see it with a new eyes, but I also see the fact that it's very familiar to me, maybe too familiar. Mm-hmm. So I like being a stranger. I like being anonymous. I like not speaking the language. I like just having a backpack on my back and none of my history. None of my history follows me. You know, and that I don't know if that's a unique thing or not.
It's I think it's a unique thing, and you're very much meant to relocate and come over and explore. Yeah. So.
And I'll do it again and again and again. The one thing I really miss is traveling right now. We've worked so hard to fix this apartment up, to do some of the work that we've done in Portugal. We run an Airbnb in California now as well. And I'm very grateful for the work we've done over the last 4 or 5 years to set things up. My wife built a house for her mother in Watts. I mean, she's amazing. I'm just along for the ride. But
it's always the wife.
Yeah. I set it up, she knocks it down. Nicely done. But, you know, I miss going out there and being a traveler. I miss going out there and seeing something for the first time.
Right.
That's what I really love. I love going somewhere for the first time. And that's a slippery slope, because unless you're traveling constantly, which I would do, I don't quite have the energy for it like I used to, but I still have the desire. And in a very small way, the desire to strike up a conversation with a stranger. And I do that in Budapest. I do it in Portugal. I do it in California. But I want to go do it in Iceland and South America and wherever else is on the bucket list. And you know,
are you planning to document your journey?
I always document it. We've got a little film company called Planet B, BE. And
we are going to put it in the description. Like, I already looked up the website. It's pretty cool. So you guys, there are like more interviews that Matt did in the past. So it's definitely, you guys go and check it out.
We coined it the Eastern Beat, and it's all about Budapest. And we've interviewed, 30, 40 different people who are change makers here in Budapest, all from different countries. And they've come here and turned this place into their home. And they've come here as musicians, as actors, as artists, and they've found this city to be welcoming, and they've found this city to be challenging and also inviting. And back to my gal Victoria's comment, without judgment. And there's something beautiful about that. There's something inclusive about that. And I don't know if Paris and London offers that. I've got friends in London right now. My dear friend from Ukraine actually is there. And it's a big city. It's like Los Angeles. You can get lost in London.
Yeah.
And you can get lost in Los Angeles.
I feel like everybody is choked up by politics and and the prices, whether it's real estate, whether it's the grocery prices. If you have a family, then the tuition fee and the healthcare and so on. I think in these big cities, people are frustrated.
That's why Budapest is a big little city.
It's a big little city.
It's got the shoulders of a Chicago, and yet it's got the walkability and the neighborhoodly feel of a small town.
Exactly. I used to think that this is a small city until I moved into bigger cities like LA. And then I realized that, oh no, like this is just not cool driving hour, 2 hours from A to B and dealing with the traffic and everything. And then I realized that the size of this city is just perfect. It's big enough, but just like you said, it's still walkable. We have everything, and if you don't have something, then you go over to Vienna.
Yeah.
Even by train, many of us, we just hop on the train.
Or Slovakia or Slovenia.
2 hours.
Bratislava, is great. There's a lot of great destinations that are really, really close.
And I do a lot of online shopping.
Yeah.
I do, because I got certain things used to from America.
Yes.
And I have friends coming back and forth all the time. And they bring me my Amazon order all the time. We appreciate that. I know you guys are going to watch it, so I appreciate it. But I also, many companies, almost all the companies, they ship to Hungary because we're part of the EU.
Sure.
It's very easy. We do have now back in the States, we call the Amazon locker, the box. We have several different, of course, different name, but we have the same, so you can just go and pick up your orders. I never had any problem with these international deliveries, but if I can find something, then I just order it online, and within a couple of business days are here. So I really don't feel that I miss anything.
Yeah. I bring my Apple products from home, though. I don't want to buy an Apple.
100%. Like, those are one of those things that is phone, everything is coming from the States still.
It is what it is. I mean, Budapest does have a 27% tax. You want to cut that out.
I know, but you know what? It's interesting is I have someone from originally from California, but the last city he lived was South Carolina. I hope he's not gonna hate me. Maybe it's North Carolina. I'm not sure. Anyway, he says, like, the Apple products, the cheapest is in Iran. And I said the same thing. I'm like, seriously? He was like, yes, it's cheaper than in the States.
There's always ways around it.
I know, right?
There's always ways of figuring. And Apple products don't define you.
I'm not sure if I want to travel to Iran to buy Apple products, but it's an interesting information.
No, I mean, sure, you always want to save $1, and I can definitely find my bargains as need be, but I don't think your Apple products dictate your time in Budapest. They may maybe help out. Maybe you take a better picture or a better video.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, but other than that, I was joking with Matt the other day that we do have the best peanut butter ever. and everything, all the necessities that you want, we do have it available. So, all right, I think we covered everything. I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. I very much enjoyed every time, and I feel like every time when I sit down and talk to you, I'm ready to sit and look forward to the next one, because it's just, I like surrounding myself with good, positive, energetic, like-minded people, just like I said before, and this gentleman definitely has all that. So it's really pleasure to chatting with you, and I'm very, very happy that you find yourself
I'm very happy as well.
Here in
Thank you for
Budapest.
recognizing that in both of us. And look, your story is a similar story. You left Budapest, you went to live in a bunch of different countries, you've come back, and you're also singing the praises of this place. Did you see this place in a new light when you came back from New York?
100%,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, I didn't expect, it wasn't planned or anything, but I came back and I was like, whoa, wait a minute.
You appreciated it more.
For 100%, yeah. Initially, you're taking for granted your hometown, right? Until you go, and maybe comes also with age and different factors. But I came back and I'm like, wow, okay.
Did you appreciate it more?
Yes,
And you saw it in a new light.
100%, yes.
Was that because of your experience in America?
I would like to think so, yes.
Because it takes also perspective.
I
to
think
your
so.
point, to go away from your hometown or to go away from where you've felt quote unquote at home,
Yeah.
to come back to it and see it in a new light. And I think your question earlier will make me look at California perhaps differently. I think that it's easy for me to fall back into what I knew. And maybe it's our charge, like you did, to come back and see it in a new light. So that's an interesting challenge for me.
Yeah, you let me know. You will be gone, and then you come back, and
And
maybe we will sit down again and talk about like how was the summer
Yeah, I'll interview
in
you
California.
this time.
Oh, good. All right, cool. All right, guys. So again, thank you so much for watching, and thank you.
My pleasure.
Hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you.
See you at Simpla. We'll have some pollen.
We'll see you next time. Bye bye.